All right, guys. So this is an ed puzzle that we're doing to present two different documents, document A and document B. Now, it's important before I get started to go over a few different things. The USS Maine is a battleship that was sent to Havana by President McKinley before the War of 1898 started. We've been talking about the War of 1898 in class. The USS Maine sunk in the Havana harbor. And as you guys learned in class, Spain was blamed for sinking the USS Maine. But in these two documents, I want you to pay attention to how the story was told in two different newspapers. And I want you to ask yourself, as I show you these two different newspaper accounts, which story is more accurate? All right, which one would you trust? And then I want you to be able to tell me why. Point to some specific evidence. So I'm going to walk you through this process. The other thing I want to point out before we get started, and this is kind of important just so that you understand the timeline of events, is that the USS Maine sunk the evening of February 15th, 1898. All right, so the day after Valentine's Day at around 9:40 p.m. is when an explosion took place and the USS Maine sunk. All right, so here we go. Document A is from the New York Journal. Now, before you read any historical text, and this is going to be really important, this is probably going to show up on some quizzes, so I want you guys to pay attention. Before you read any historical text, I always want you to read the abstract and the source, okay? So in this case, the abstract is at the top of the page, and here's what it says. The following is an excerpt from New York Journal and Advertiser, published February 17th, 1898. Purchased by William Randolph Hearst in 1895, the journal published investigative and human interest stories that used highly emotional writing style and included banner headlines and graphic images. Okay? Now, there are some things that you're going to see that I have highlighted throughout. And after I read, I'll go back and point out why these things are highlighted. First of all, February 17th, 1898 is less than 2 days after the Maine sunk. So it is very unlikely that anyone really knew what happened. When we're talking about 1898, they don't have internet, they don't have satellites, they don't have a way to communicate very quickly and efficiently. It's very, very difficult to believe that we're going to get to the bottom of this in less than 2 days. William Randolph Hearst is one of the newspaper owners that we talked about. He owns the New York Journal, who kind of subscribes to this ideology of yellow journalism. And he had just purchased the paper, right? 1895 is when he purchased the paper. So the paper doesn't have this long-standing reputation of being reputable, if that makes sense. Whenever you're reading a paper, it should give you the facts. It shouldn't include a highly emotional writing style. That in and of itself shows that it's biased, right? And graphic images, and that is the epitome of what yellow journalism is. It's an attempt to manipulate the reader or the viewer, okay? Now this section right here is kind of confusing. It's not meant to be a paragraph. These are the mini headlines of the actual newspaper. So destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy. Assistant Secretary Roosevelt convinced the explosion of the warship was not an accident, right? These are just mini headlines within the story. So we're going to skip over this and we're going to get to the really quick document, which hopefully you guys have already read. Now, again, I want you to ask yourself, is this an accurate, trustworthy portrayal, in your opinion? So here we go. George Bryson, and who is he? The Journal's special reporter at Havana, writes that it is the secret opinion. What is this? What is that, right? What is a secret opinion of many people in Havana that the warship Maine was destroyed by a mine and 258 men killed on purpose by the Spanish? So there's not a lot of evidence in here. Secret opinion doesn't really give us much in the way of evidence. This is the opinion of several American naval authorities. The Spaniards, it is believed, arranged to have the Maine drop anchor over the harbor mine. Wires connected to the mine and magazine of the ship. If this is true, the brutal nature of the Spaniards will be shown by the fact that they waited to explode the mine until all of the men had gone to sleep. So again, there's no evidence produced that shows that this is what Spain did. This is just people's opinion, okay? But they're saying that if this is true, this is going to show that the Spaniards are really brutal, all right? Now, there are some vocabulary words here that I want you to be familiar with. The magazine of the ship. That probably doesn't make any sense to most of you. And the magazine is an actual room inside the ship where all of the ship's ammunition is, okay? And what had happened on the USS Maine, as you're going to see in a few minutes, is that they built the ship where the magazine, where all of the bullets and all of the shells that have all this gunpowder in it were in this room right next to what they call the coal bunker. And the coal bunker is where all the hot coal is, okay? So just keep that in mind. Spanish officials are protesting too much that they did not do it. So what does that mean? I guess they're trying to insinuate that Spanish officials are arguing with the fact that they did it, right? Our government has ordered an investigation. This newspaper has sent divers to Havana to report on the condition of the wreck. This newspaper is also offering a $50,000 reward for exclusive evidence that will convict whoever is responsible. Assistant Secretary of the Navy Theodore Roosevelt says he is convinced that the destruction of the Maine in Havana Harbor was not an accident. The suspicion that the Maine was purposefully blown up grows stronger every hour. Not a single fact to the contrary has been produced. Okay? So when you read this, I want you once again to think, is this an accurate portrayal? Is this something that you think you can trust based on specific evidence? Here is document B, the second document. And the first thing that I want to call to your attention, again, before you read any historical document, you want to look at the source and you want to look at the abstract. And the reason, once again, that you want to do that is you want to know who the author is and if there's any potential for bias before you start reading, okay? So this is an excerpt from the New York Times. And again, it's February 17th, 1898, talking about the same event, which is the sinking of the USS Maine. But this paper was established in 1851. So unlike the Journal that doesn't have this long-standing record of being reputable, the Journal was 1895, just 3 years before the sinking of the Maine. This paper was established in 1851, and the New York Times provided investigative coverage of local New York issues and events, as well as national and international news. So there's no emotional writing style, okay? Again, this paragraph here is of many headlines. We're going to skip that. We're going to get straight to the document. So here is document B. It's really short. Just bear with me. It has been a busy day for the Navy Department. The warship Maine was destroyed in Havana Harbor last night. Officials in Washington and Havana have been sending cables all night long. Secretary Long, so again, they're naming a source. It's not a secret opinion. Secretary Long was asked whether he thought this was the work of the enemy. And the enemy, presumably, is Spain, right? So what did he say? He replied, "I do not. I am influenced by the fact that Captain Sigsbee has not yet reported to the Navy Department. It seems he is waiting to write a full report. So long as he has not made a decision, I certainly cannot. I should think from the signs, however, that this was an accident, that the magazine exploded." Again, what's a magazine? It's a room containing all the ammunition in the ship. How that came about, I do not know. For the present, at least, no other warship will be sent to Havana, right? So that's the end quote. Now, who is Captain Shuley? Captain Shuley, who knows a great deal about warships, did not entertain the idea that the Maine had been destroyed on purpose. He said that fires would sometimes start in the coal bunkers, and as I just told you, the coal bunker was right next to the magazine, and he told of such a fire on board another warship that started very close to the magazine. The fire became so hot that the heat blistered the steel wall between the fire and the ammunition before the bunkers and the magazine were flooded with water to stop the fire. He did not believe, now this is important, he did not believe that the Spanish or Cubans in Havana had either the information or equipment necessary to blow up the magazine while the Maine was under guard. So what does that mean? It means that we were guarding the Maine as it was in port, and he doesn't believe that the Spanish or the Cubans had the equipment or intelligence to pull this off, blowing up one of our battleships. All right? So again, ask yourself, which of these documents is more accurate?
We are now ready to recreate the events of February 15th, 1898. All that day, a smoldering coal fire heated the bulkhead in the 6-inch reserve magazine. At 9:40 p.m., 6 tons of gunpowder exploded in the magazine. Nanoseconds later, 2 other magazines erupted, blowing out the sides of the ship and sinking her. As water rushed into the ship, it carried with it the large flap of metal, now known as Section 1. Although the subsequent war with Spain was justified as an appropriate response to a terrorist act, what happened to the Maine was more an act of God than a deliberate act of man.
One has to ask themselves, why is it important to know the truth of the loss of the Maine? Well, the answer's right behind me. We would do them a great disservice if we explained it away as a Spanish mine exploding it, rather than what really happened to them. These men died in service to their country, and to distort how they died is dishonor.
History once made cannot be undone, and today's news will be tomorrow's history. If the loss of the Maine and the men who walked her decks can have any more meaning, then perhaps it might be to make sure that those words are never forgotten. We must understand the past in order not to relive it. Those words have never been invested with more meaning than they are today.